Hello. In this presentation, we will ask the questions, what is appropriation? And where does creativity come from? And hopefully by the end of this video, you will have an answer for both of those questions. So let's start with the first question, appropriation. What is it? The definition could be to borrow, copy, or steal an idea on purpose, and then use that idea to create something new. That's the way we could think of appropriation in terms of art, not cultural appropriation. But let's watch this video and see if we can get some more information about what appropriation is in art.
Recently, an artist named Jeff Koons got in some trouble. He got charged with using an idea from an ad campaign from the 1980s to create his own sculpture called Fait divers. And whether you care about Jeff Koons or not, it brings up a contentious term we hear a lot about, appropriation. I'm Professor Lees, not really a professor, and this is Art 101, not really a class. We're here to go on a deep dive of an idea, an artwork, or a story from the art world that's controversial, inexplicable, or just plain weird. Appropriation is a word that's been part of the conversation for a while, often in the context of cultural appropriation. But we're going to concentrate on the word appropriation itself. Is it bad, good, somewhere in the middle? And what does it actually mean? To appropriate something means to make or make use of without authority or right. And it's also a confusing topic because it's about stealing and ownership and originality. In music, you might think of appropriation as an act of respect. Sampling, remixes, old songs used to play a role in new ones, and that doesn't always go over well either. In visual art, it's been a tool, sometimes for good, sometimes for very critical reasons. Remember the picture of Barack Obama that filled hearts with optimism back in the days when we had optimism? That image of Obama came from a photograph by Manny Garcia. A street artist named Shepard Fairey took it, made it into a pop art looking pencil sketch, and put the word hope under it, and a song created an image that helped Obama win the election. Was it borrowing, theft, or paying respect? Appropriation has been a powerful tool for artists to shock our system. Canadian artist collective General Idea looked at the famous sculpture Love by Robert Indiana from the 1960s and turned it into their painting AIDS in 1987, an artwork that makes a visceral statement about love, fear, and the AIDS epidemic. Banksy has appropriated images from the news and from popular culture to talk about poverty, injustice, and the art world itself. Remember that Banksy piece that shredded itself at an auction a little while ago? That was an image he's appropriated from himself. It used to be called Balloon Girl. Now it's called Love is in the Bin. And here's maybe the most powerful example from recent memory. Childish Gambino's This Is America video. Donald Glover's poses go straight back to racist images of Jim Crow. He took on a despicable vision of a minstrel to enact a scathing critique of America in 2018. So, is appropriation a critical tool or a power move to steal somebody else's idea, culture, or artwork? Maybe it's both. It's still a confusing issue. It's still about theft, ownership, and originality. It's also been a powerful way for artists to make us think twice about things, provoke a critical point of view, maybe make us see things in a new way for a new future. Here's the Mona Lisa with a mustache, because appropriation. See you next time for more Art 101.
All right, so appropriation is used by many different artists. And we can see that it's really about when you borrow, copy, or steal an idea on purpose, and then use the idea to create something new. And whether you think it's stealing or a new comment on something else is kind of what makes using appropriation as a tool interesting. The next thing we're going to talk about is, where does creativity come from? Is there really anything new in this world? A writer by the name of Austin Kleon did a TED Talk, and the following slides I'm actually appropriating from his TED Talk. I'm using the information from that TED Talk to make a point about creativity. So he was having a hard time thinking about what to write. He just couldn't come up with anything. He had writer's block, and he was struggling to find something to say. So he realized that why does he have to say something new when there are so many words written out in newspapers? So instead of creating new words, what he does he did was he blacked out or scribbled out the words around words that he thought would come up that would make a poem. So for example, you see one of his artworks here, or one of his poems here. So this kind of blurs the line between art and poetry. Now, he put this out into the world thinking that he was super creative and awesome. And he realized that, like, you know what? This wasn't a completely original idea. In fact, he had come across this picture of an FBI file. This happens to be John Lennon's FBI file from the 80s, and from, even present day, where words are completely blacked out. So he kind of was stealing from that idea. But then, after having his poetry out in the world on social media, people started to give him some like real blowback, because they were saying, "You've just stole the idea of an artist named Tom Phillips from the 1960s, and he would do the same thing, only he would draw designs over the words that he was blacking out, and he called these floating words or humument." And here are some examples of his poetry that he was creating from words that were already there. So appropriating these words and creating new artwork and poetry around them. And here's a picture of him working on one of his poems. But even this artist, Tom Phillips, was not original in his idea. In fact, another poet, William S. Burroughs, came up with this idea in the 1950s, 60s, where he would cut up words and sentences from newspapers and other books and other publications to make his own poems from. But even William S. Burroughs was not completely original in his idea. Brian Gisson, also in the 1960s, came up with this new idea of using newspapers and putting them all together again to create something new when he was cutting his canvas on the top of a stack of newspaper. And he used a blade to cut through the canvas. And as he was cutting through the canvas, he also cut through the newspaper. And then when he looked at it, he realized, I can take these cut up pieces of newspaper and turn them into something new. But even this guy was not the original person to create this idea. Tristan Tzara from the 1920s was doing the same thing with newspaper clippings from his time. And we can even find an example of somebody from the 1790s doing something where they read across newspaper lines instead of reading the whole article itself. So what am I trying to say here? All new artwork comes from something. Nothing is completely original. In fact, there is a quote from the Bible that says, "That which has been is that which will be again, and that which has been done is that which will be done again. So there is nothing new under the sun." This idea was in the Bible. Okay, so what we can say about creativity at this point is that inspiration and creativity come from taking what already exists in the world and then seeing it in a new way. It's the remix, right? It's the mashup. It's putting two things together. You know what? You are also a remix, right? You have a mother, you have a father, they came together and they created you, something new. So you have one person and one person coming together to create three people, right? 1 + 1 = 3. That's not really what it equals, but you can see that you can take two ideas and put them together to create something new. So now you have three original ideas. So hopefully by this point, you can answer the questions, what is appropriation and where does creativity come from? Thanks for watching.